All right. So, good evening, everybody. I want to thank you for joining us for our design entrepreneurship virtual fireside chats, where this is an opportunity for us to be able to explore various successful business models. We had our first one last week with Calvin Singleton that spoke about um, real estate because he uh, had purchased his building in the 80s and was able to talk about that. I do have the recording, so I will be posting that probably tomorrow on LinkedIn, and we'll see if we can send it out to everybody that has registered. But this evening, I am so excited to have Dan Bickerstaff on the call today, in which we will be talking about having a boutique architecture firm. But before we get into that conversation, I wanted to read a little bit about Mr. Bickerstaff. Okay, so Dan founded Ubiquitous Design Ltd. As a junior in college to supplement his income while a student matriculating through Washington University School of Architecture. Mr. Bickerstaff has more than 22 years of direct project management. He has completed numerous design projects throughout the Northeast Ohio region as an intern with various architectural firms, as well as serving as chief architect within the City of Cleveland's Division of Architecture. He has played significant roles in the design of the Northeast Ohio headquarters for the Red Cross and the City of Cleveland's Greenhouse Edition. He has also designed numerous residential, commercial, and institutional projects, not the least of which is the City of Cleveland's African American Cultural Garden located in the historic Rockefeller Park. As founder and principal architect of Ubiquitous Design, he is responsible for the execution of all aspects of the office, from development of proposals and pre-design services to construction administration. His commitment and dedication ensure the successful completion of projects, both large and small. As an example of our project portfolios, as an example of his project portfolio's diversity, they have designed buildings ranging in value from $5,000 all the way to $24 million. This is a testament to his ability to embrace any scale project and give it the level of professionalism it deserves. So I want to give a virtual round of applause to Dan Bickerstaff.
Dawn,
Thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Yes, awesome. So I have a few questions, but before we get started, I just wanted to let you all know if you've never been on Zoom before, at the very bottom, there is a chat option that you can click on. So if at any time during our dialogue that you have a question, please just drop it in the chat. We're going to talk, but leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end to be able to answer any questions that you may have before we get started. Okay. So, Dan, let's talk about your initial wanting to be an architect. So, you started it in college, but once you got out and became licensed, what year did you get licensed?
2000.
2000. Okay. So, you were working immediately. So, can you walk us through your first um, ideas of like why you wanted to start your firm?
Well, as you mentioned in the bio, I needed to create an income stream because, I wasn't the richest college student. So it was important for me to implement whatever I learned in school and try to display those techniques and that experience in the working world early on in my career. So
Okay. Go ahead, Dan. You were about to say something else.
I was just gonna say it was important for me to also have my own practice because I always wanted to have my own practice and to teach simultaneously. And the reason for that, which is, has somewhat of a difficult background, is that during college, I had some difficult challenges with professors, either A, overlooking me as a student, or actually literally telling me I should transfer to the School of Social Work. or community college back in Ohio. So I knew after going through that experience, I needed to prove myself to not only myself, but to others that I was capable of doing this.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
Well, the proof is in the pudding, right? You're here now. All right. So I want you to walk us through what your first year in business as Ubiquitous Design, a licensed architect, how was that? Please explain that to us. What was
You
it
know,
like?
actually, it wasn't challenging at all because I worked for the city of Cleveland Division of Architecture my last 5 years of being an employee, but I also simultaneously continue to take on projects, house additions, building models for other architects, and just doing whatever I could architecturally on the weekends and in the evenings and things of that nature. So it was relatively smooth transition. And just to really zoom in on that actual moment when I made the decision is that, I was working at the city and I realized, my wife and I realized that I was making more money on the side than I was as an employee after we went through our budget. And she indicated that, just imagine if you had 40 additional hours per week to do what you're doing, but me feeling, I guess, concerned and fearful a little bit because of the security of having a job and, retirement, etc. And then plus realizing that the entire onus would be on me. I had concerns, but she said, I think you can do it. So, I made a decision, submitted my resignation, and 2 weeks later, I was out on my own in my basement, still doing what I had been doing, but having those 8 hours a day, so to speak, extra.
Okay, okay. So tonight, we want to really zoom in on the actual business model that you created, which is like a boutique firm. And so, my question to you is, how did you decide to structure your business this way, or was it happenstance? And why did you choose this strategy?
Well, it was quite organic, and I always had the mindset of growing to about 10 people or so. We're at four, two internal and two virtual. But when I structured the business, actually it'll be 23 years next month on the 14th that I set up my LLC, which has allowed me flexibility with regard to taxes. And it was just a very um, easy way to implement getting my business off the ground legally and structurally. And it's worked out over the years that I was able to maintain that. I'm obviously looking to continue to grow, so much so that my two sons are in architecture school now. The one's at my alma mater in St. Louis, going through the same footsteps that I tread down. So we're obviously looking at maybe becoming incorporated in the future.
Okay, so but do you still plan to remain like a small operation like you are now?
Again, my objective is to grow continually, but not to the point where it's overwhelming or unwieldy. You mentioned boutique, and I thought that's an interesting term, and I don't have any objections to that. But we're actually a full service architecture firm that doesn't really focus on a particular architectural typology at this point. I mean, over the past 10 years, efforts have been geared toward healthcare, which has really been fruitful for us. So again, getting those credentials and that experience in healthcare, I see the firm possibly growing to at least 10 in the next 5 years. So if that's
Okay.
considered a boutique still, that's fine.
Yeah, so when I say boutique, I mean more so just small operations. You're not 100 employees. You don't have 25 locations. You're not
Right.
around the United States. And so that's why I want to focus on
Mhm.
those that are looking to want to start a firm, but they don't want to be the next HOK as far as having all of these multiple international locations. And what are those pros and cons?
Yeah.
So my next question to you are, what are some of the major obstacles in running your business through this model, meaning having a
Sure.
smaller operations? What are some of those obstacles you face?
Well, early on, I would say the first 10 years, there were questions of capacity. when I would go at, get RFPs from different municipalities and other institutions, and we would submit our credentials, and they would see two, three people, and they basically would think that we wouldn't be able to handle the project. So over the years, though, based on our experience and based on our technological prowess in using Revit, or before Revit, AutoCAD, being able to take on larger and larger projects, that hasn't really been an issue at this point. But capacity is always something in the back of our mind, limiting us in terms of what projects we can go at or should go at.
Okay, so just to add to that, because that was an issue, um, how have you addressed it now? Although, yes, you have a lot of years of experience now, do you kind of keep a team on standby that you can bring onto these projects as a contractor that you can be able to, at the drop of a hat or with short notice, be able to list them on your RFP? Because again, I'm thinking about someone that might want to start a firm. They have plenty of experience from maybe the firms they've worked in and things like that. But now that they're on their own, like you said, they're like, you're only one person. So
Right.
how would you recommend that these future firm owners to be able to go after these projects
That's
and not
great.
be looked over?
That's a great question, Dawn. And what's interesting is before the pandemic, I had a staff member, he was Egyptian, and his wife hated the cold. So they actually moved back to Egypt. But we maintained a relationship even before people were outsourcing, so to speak. So we basically instituted that model in our practice, not knowing that this is something that would be coming online um, during such a tragic situation with the pandemic. So we have individuals that we can actually tap into their services, bring them on as consultants using 1099 documentation. But even more so than having an individual on standby, one major aspect of our practice is teaming up with individual firms. Primarily, there's one firm that I worked for as an intern right out of college. The name of the firm is Collins, Reimer, and Gordon. And I was an intern, and this gentleman named Mike Zambo was an intern. Mike Zambo stayed at that firm for 30 plus years. So he's actually like the vice president. So we maintained our relationship over the years. And hence, we've worked on at least 15 to 20 projects together. And our relationship has grown to the point now where, we're not simply the lesser partner or the smaller partner. It's not even about MBE or DBE because we have a professional relationship. So we're not just trying to check a box when we have to go after projects. But just a month ago, I went after the Metro Health Emergency Department project, 50,000 square feet, and I won that project, and Boston is working for me now. So that model and that approach in terms of working with larger firms to gain greater experience has been crucial to our growth, to our exposure, and for others to realize that we may be small, lean, and mean, but we're capable of producing as other firms.
I love that, Dan. Thank you for sharing that. So this brings me to another question. Can you speak more to strategic partnerships and the importance of that with your firm, and how it has helped you to scale, how it has helped you to go after larger projects that by yourself you probably couldn't, because you need that manpower.
Right.
So again, just helping people kind of move through what you're doing as a firm owner.
Yeah. And, those partnerships and teaming opportunities are, again, crucial to our growth and to our overhead and profit. But what's more important is the authenticity of those relationships. So I've had to remove myself from projects with firms that, wanted a DBE firm to work with to move forward with the project or two. But once we won the project, it was like, okay, well, UD, you can just sit over here and we'll take it from here. And a couple of times I had to contact the owners and say, you know what? Please look for another partner to fill my position. And most recent situation, it cost me about $140,000 to do that. But I just thank God that I'm in a position where I didn't suffer severely, but that's a lot of money to remove yourself from a job on a principal basis, knowing that you're not really part of the team. It's you know, so again, those partnerships are important if you're looking to grow and scale. If not, I would remain a boutique firm, so to speak. One of the projects that I would like to share with you guys about is we just won a project for the Cleveland Clinic and in partnership with the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavaliers are moving their training facility from Independence back to Cleveland. And Cleveland Clinic is partnering with the Cavs to provide a healthcare component. So in essence, it's one building, but actually it's two buildings synthesized into one. So my role is to design and prepare all the schematic design through CA for the third floor of a three-story building. And it's quite daunting, and knowing that client and Cavs and Cleveland Clinic, both global icons, I wouldn't be able to work on that particular project if I didn't have sustained partnerships over decades.
Oh, well, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
First of all, congratulations on hitting 23 years next month. I meant to say that as well. So I appreciate you sharing that insight. Um, the other question I want to ask, more so with the strategic partnerships, how
Mhm.
did you decide what firms you wanted to partner with on larger projects? Did you kind of sit down and say, these are make a short list and reach out to them individually? Did it happen organically because you've worked on projects in the past? How does that work?
I think it's more of the latter. I've really been blessed that firms contact us. We work hard. I'm in the office every day at 5 in the morning. People drive by. Matter of fact, a young man, as I was pulling up to the office today, a young man had just pulled in front of me, and he was looking in my storefront window. And I asked him if he needed anything. He says, "Yes, I drive by here all the time. I see your car here at 6 in the morning, and my mom wants to design a retirement home in Jamaica, and I'm going to Jamaica in 2 weeks." So just situations like that through hard work, dedication, um, other firms, other individuals realize your commitment to the practice, your commitment to excellence. So, and that word gets out. I believe that's what's been happening over the last 23 years.
Okay, okay. All right. So we talked about some major obstacles that you face having a business model, having a smaller practice. What
Mhm.
are some pros that you find are easier for you to manage because you have a boutique firm?
Well, the biggest pro is payroll. I don't have that stress. I have individuals that must be paid on a regular basis, but and they get paid before I do sometimes because some of our larger clients, they don't really take in the fact that you're a smaller firm and you're like a nice, faster turnaround other than 60, 90, 120-day turnaround on invoicing. So that's one thing that um, has helped me to feel comfortable about the size that I am. I mean, when I left my job at the city, my main objective was one, to take care of my family, and two, be able to afford to allow my sons to go to college and graduate debt free. One's going to graduate next year, 2025. One's going to graduate 2026, both debt free. So I'm reaching my goals and benchmarks in terms of the objective of having practice. And hopefully we'll have a legacy for them to take over and take it to the next level.
That's awesome. So to add to that, then you said payroll, it was easier to manage.
Yeah.
When you are starting off in a small operations, do you specify um, well, I would say in the past, it's kind of like 2020, right? But do you now, or would you recommend now, that if you're a small practice, when you go into negotiations for contracts, that you say, hey, I would like to get paid in 30 days versus 60 or 90, or standard based off of the client, and there's nothing you can do about it.
No, that's why it's important to be fiscally sound. and get an attorney and hire an accountant and have your credit in good shape so that you can have those resources available. I mean, if I was an owner and someone came to me and I was willing to offer them a job and they told me when they would like to get paid, which didn't coincide with our regular cycling, I would be a bit put off. So that's something that, in our contracts, is usually written in the AI documents that I specify 30-day turnaround, but I'm really flexible for sure.
Okay.
Even
Okay.
with some of my smaller clients. And the one thing about that in terms of payroll, even with my consultants, oftentimes they're smaller as well. So when we complete our drawings and submit them to the city and we're in the process of getting our necessary approvals, I oftentimes pay my engineers so that, and they oftentimes request to get paid when they finish their drawings, almost like a cash and carry type deal, which is not typically the case in our profession. But I try to do that to make sure that they're whole and they're happy. And then when I ultimately get paid from the client, I have those resources that I already have doled out to my team.
Okay. Okay. So, forgive me, I'm just doing this deep dive because
Yeah.
I want to know this stuff. Okay, so I have some
So you can
questions.
compete with me?
One day, maybe. So, what are some things that you've learned about yourself as a business owner? And what are some things you've learned about entrepreneurship?
As a business owner, I've learned to be more patient. My personality prior to starting to practice, I'm a sort of type A personality where, I'm always wound up. But when I'm teaching staff and walking them through how to put a building together, I have to really be patient, especially my younger staff. I was dealing with one individual this morning trying to walk through um, completing a building section for a space, which in AutoCAD, it would be easy for me to do, but I'm sort of moving into the Revit realm as an older statesman, and it was a bit challenging. But she has the Revit experience, but not putting the building together. So we were sort of working together, and I was trying to be patient about how simple this drawing could be. But so that's one of the key things that I really am proud about in terms of really altering my personality to be a better person in terms of understanding who people are as opposed to where they need to be. I had bosses be total opposite.
Okay.
I would never be that kind of person.
Yeah, I think we've all had a bad boss in our lifetime. All
Mm.
right. And so what are some things you learned about yourself when it comes to entrepreneurship though? Like that you didn't know before you started your business, now that you're here.
The one thing that always sticks in my mind on a daily basis is how I can achieve in my mind. I can achieve anything I want to achieve. Every time I put the key in my door, it's a blessing, just to know that what I'm doing, what God's allowed me to do, is not only helping me to take care of myself and my family and do things that I like to do, but is also providing a livelihood for others. And to me, that's a miracle. That's really, you can't really ask for much more. To be of service to other people and be of service to my clients and everyone involved in the practice. And that's why, this year I'm the president of AIA Cleveland. And it's been a bit of a challenge with regard to time. I love what I've been able to do and learn and meet individuals in the chapter and just work on different committees with different committees. But if I look at my bottom line, I think I lost quite a bit of money in terms of projects, not taking on projects that I know I could have taken on. But I look at the broader good of what I'm doing in terms of what AIA has done for me. Because what I'd like to share is, as a freshman in high school, my high school teacher challenged everyone in the class to select a profession. And I was the only one in the class to select architect. And she made us contact national, each profession's national office, either be, a doctor, lawyer, teacher, whatever, to find out what that profession entailed from education, compensation, the whole 9 yards. And I still have my documentation from AIA from 1979. So, and it was actually after Mr. Robert P. Madison did a career day, had a career day at our junior high school. Margaret became junior high school. So I've been in pursuit of this dream, this passion of mine since then. And AIA has been instrumental in that. So I would suggest and admonish and plead with individuals if they haven't gotten involved with AIA, NOMA, or any other organizations to please do so that you can meet individuals, people can get to know you, and then that'll actually enhance your trajectory and broaden your horizon.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I totally agree, Dan, that if you are kind of working in a silo, just trying to, build your business, but you're not meeting anyone to tell them about your business, you're going to grow a lot slower. So
Mm-hmm.
the importance of strategic partnerships that you spoke about, but also networking and getting yourself out there, finding out what's happening in the industry, right? So getting involved in your professional organizations, to be able to find out what's happening, but also stay relevant and let people know about what you've been doing.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
as you know, you were at the conference, right? NOMA in Baltimore.
yeah,
And I registered, that was a lot of money for the registration, but I couldn't make it because I had deadlines.
you stood us up.
I'm the next to me.
You stood us up, Dan, but we're
But
forgiving you
that's a
because,
phenomenal conference that I would recommend everyone on this call to attend at least once.
yes, it
Along
is.
with AI as well.
Yes. So I have another question for you.
Okay.
Uh, now, again, this series is dedicated to just educating individuals that are interested in starting their own firm, what business models are successful so they can explore them to figure out what they want to do. So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start their own firm? Like, how should they start? Um, because after this question, I want to talk about uh, your startup. I know you worked out of your basement, but let's start there. What's some advice that you would want to give to future firm owners?
I would say first to really sit down and weigh the pros and cons and try to get a real definitive understanding of why they want to do that. Is it strictly financial? Do they want to be the next David Ajay or I am paid? What's the reason that you want to take on such an endeavor? Because just as an aside, I share with some of my fraternity brothers that I'm a big Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. I go to the gym. Just one day I just want to continue to get bigger and bigger. But I mentioned that owning this practice is like eternity. You go to sleep with it on your mind. You wake up, it's on your mind. It's never not on my mind in terms of what aspect of the project of the business that I need to be focused on. And you have to be built for that because that's like an ongoing pressure. I tell folks also, when they say, well, happy Friday, thank God it's Friday. That used to mean something when I was an employee. Every day is Monday for me, but I'm grateful for that. So I would just share that once they really sit down and understand the why, that'll be the first step in terms of making that decision. And to have individuals that are close and dear to them and individuals who other professionals that can help provide mentorship. So like you mentioned, being in the silo, gather as much information and do as much research as you possibly can before making that leap. Because there's some statistic that says like 75% of new businesses go out of business. I believe that's the percentage. Maybe Jeff knows better than I do. But anyway, just to be sure about what you want to do and be committed to.
All right, so I heard you say understand your why because it doesn't shut off at Friday on Friday at 5 p.m.
Right.
Uh, And so that's what keeps you going past the 5 p.m. That's what gets you going there at the office at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m., right?
Mhm. Correct.
And then also you're saying get you some mentors, right? A support system,
Mhm.
not only for advice, but also for encouragement. Because we didn't get to the point of asking, so how many times did you say I didn't want to do this anymore? But I'm sure in those moments, having that kind of network is really going to help push you and drive you.
Because
And
one thing I wanted to just share is even if things are going swimmingly well professionally and with the business, it's always something that comes up. One of the things that's been challenging for me over the last 2 years is health issues. I injured my knee. I was on crutches for 18 weeks. And if you're a business owner, clients aren't really interested in, doctor's appointments and things like that. They want their drawings done so that they can move forward, either move into the house or start the business, start generating income. So that's another reason why you really have to be committed to this. I mean, thank God for the Teams and Zoom. I was able to take meetings on my couch with my leg propped up. It was just amazing with this technology that I was able to continue moving forward. But um, again, just reinforcing the why we're making this decision.
awesome, awesome. So I also saw that there was a question in the chat. Um, so Dylan asked the question, from when you started architecture till now, how has the development of technology and CAD changed your business?
Tremendous. I'm not ashamed, but I'm 60 years old. So when I graduated from college, we were drawing by hand. You see this drafting table behind me? I get a lot of criticism about that table when I'm on Teams call from other architects. Like, what are you doing with that drafting table? That drafting table not only has made me a lot of money, but it just reminds me from how far we've come professionally. And again, I was doing drafting by hand, which I love, and which to me really maintained the artistic component of our profession. We sort of got a little bit away from that with the computer, but just being able to draw the tactile nature of drawing. But I would not be able to be in business without AutoCAD, which I learned on my own, which allowed me to do drawings in a fraction of time that it would take me by hand. And now moving into the realm of Revit, we're just taking on so many different projects, being able to give tremendous presentations to our clients, three-dimensionality, materiality, it's just opened up a whole new realm of possibilities architecturally. So the technology is like I wouldn't say a love-hate relationship, but I do miss the pure artistic component of it.
That's
I don't
understandable.
know if you remember Jeff or Chris, we had to maintain our line weights and turn the drafting pencil a certain way, to have foreground and background effects on our plans. It was really an interesting way to earn money. So,
A,
so
a pin bar. If
yeah,
one of the young individuals know what a pin bar is, I'd be impressed.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. When I was in college, also, um, we did everything by hand. And I had just learned AutoCAD when I graduated, and I really was horrible at it. And I really did not want to use it. And it really wasn't required in college because they were still doing things by hand and wanting us to understand the principles. But yeah, now you can't get in if you don't know any technology or Revit.
Right.
Which brings me to um, outside of technology, like as a firm owner, can you speak to the importance of balancing your time? Because as a CEO, you wear many hats. At one point, you wore all of them. So you have to manage your practice as well as business development and payroll and things like that. So, can you speak to how you're able to balance that for the future firm owners on the call?
Well, one thing that I do is I allocate my weekends, especially Saturday morning early, for all the back of the house operations. Even proposals if I can. If I can hold off on doing them during the week, I'm preparing all the necessary things that are not necessarily generating income for the weekend. And it's such a quiet period of time as well, from 6 to noon, to take care of those, I don't want to say mundane, but necessary evils, so to speak. Because I share with people that, hey, I went to architecture school, not business school. But that shouldn't preclude me from learning as much about the business as possible, and potentially returning to school to get my MBA. Um, so balancing all these hats, or wearing all these different hats, is part of the excitement actually of running the firm. It keeps the blood flowing, the enthusiasm, knowing you're not simply preparing proposal, you're not simply drawing details, you're not simply doing construction administration. So we're doing all these different things that keep things vibrant, so to speak. But it is a delicate balancing act. And I don't know about you, but also, I shared a little bit about Arnold. But as a child, my parents used to take us to the circus. And even as a child, I don't know why this was, but the most exciting part of the circus was the guy with the plates. He would start with one plate and start twirling it, go to 2, 3, 10, 20. And I would be so enthralled with that. And I'm telling you, that analogy is so apropos to being a business owner, at least for me, knowing that I need to keep these things all balanced and moving ahead to be successful.
Yeah, I was about to say you have about 50 plates, Dan.
Yeah,
But there is another question in the chat from Stacy. So she wanted to know, what advice would you give when if you to someone who, if you are given a project that is outside of a project type that you have done before? And do you have like an example of maybe an opportunity that came to you where it was a project type you'd never done before, but you agreed to do it or didn't do it? What happened?
I can tell you now, it's under construction right now. The Cleveland Clinic Coal Eye Institute, they have a building that they built maybe 25, 30 years ago. And Dr. Martin, who's the CEO of the Institute, needed more space, needed more advanced technology, and to bring in the best and brightest. So they decided to build a 185,000 square foot addition with a clear atrium space separating the two structures. So if you drive by 105 in Superior, you'll see that structure is really moving forward and scheduled to be complete next year. But our task was to design about 75, 80% of the first floor. And we were really terrified, number one, because of the visibility and possibly making a mistake. Number two, which is even more significant, was it was a refractive department. And before then, I knew about laser surgery, but that was about it. My wife had it and it was successful. But as far as designing a refractive department, I had to do so much research and understand what was required, not only from a programmatic standpoint, what the doctors wanted, what the technicians wanted and needed, but to really understand what the process was like for the end users, the patients. So we had so many different meetings with the team before we even started doing any design. And it was just an amazing thing. If I can share one picture, is that possible, Dawn?
Yeah, go ahead.
But
Well, see if you can share. If not, I'll ask Elizabeth to give you host capabilities, but let me see.
let's see. And
Oh,
let's
you are. You're a co-host on there. Cool.
okay, let me see. This is let me see if I can. You see this building?
Yeah.
This is the addition. This is the glass atrium, and we're responsible for everything in orange, and a little bit in some area in this space within the existing building.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the refractive department, this gives you a sense of what a procedure room was like with the laser equipment. But outside of these pretty pictures, I wanted you to see this. This was amazing in meeting with the doctors, giving the presentation, but building a full-scale mock-up out of cardboard. Kind of took me back to college we had, after we completed the process, you can see back here, these are counters with faucets, wall cabinetry, and this is part of the laser. But just building that space for the physicians to come in, and I'll stop sharing, for them to come in and experience the space spatially and tell us, you know what, we think we want the millwork over here. We think the laser and the monitor should be over there. It was just amazing to have them participate in the collaborative process. So again, the challenge of not knowing, but delving in feet first and working hard to achieve the objectives ended in a great result for everybody involved.
That's great, Dan. Can we take a deeper dive in like that process? Because I don't know if it was a RFP process or they specifically came to you, but um, how do you have this conversation with the client, or do you not? To say,
Okay.
I would love to do it. I'm just giving you a heads up. I've never did this project type before, or I'm going to do the research. Like, please tell us how that works.
Well, this particular project, just like the Cavs project downtown, we had three firms: an out-of-town firm, a larger local firm, and then our firm. And it was the same type of relationship with John Carroll, which is we've completed a new field house that's coming out of the ground now, 200-meter track. But for this particular case, we've worked together as different firms on different projects at different times, and we come together and say, "Listen, guys, we want to go after this project. Um, what do you think you can add? What value do you think you can add to the team?" And we really don't structure the scope of work or the components of services till after we won the project. But it's really after the client has hired us, selected our firm, that's when we sit down and really understand each of our team's um, assets and liabilities and what we can do. And that's when we sort of define what scope of work we'll do. And when I mentioned to the team, like, hey, I'm willing to do whatever part is necessary, but my colleagues are so interested in the advancement of our practice. They said, Dan, we're not going to have you doing things you know how to do, elevators and service bays, things of that nature. We want you doing something new that's going to challenge you and that's going to add to your portfolio. And that's going to be the case with the Global Peak Performance Center for the Cavs. And I just think those relationships are so important. And again, it's based on authenticity and it's based on trust, honesty, and working together to achieve a objective.
Thank you for sharing that, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. My heart probably would have beat out of my chest. Because it's like you want to be honest, but at the same time, it's like I don't want you to tell me never mind.
But see,
You told me yes.
the younger generation, you guys haven't made it in shade with this internet. I mean, I don't know, Chris, you remember the Sweets catalogs? We used to, oh man, we had to go, basically it was an encyclopedia of materials and equipment that we had to go and do our research with. But with the tools that you have today, I would say things are easy, but no challenge is too daunting, in my opinion.
Because the information is very accessible now.
There, you just have to study hard and work hard.
Okay. So I think the last question before I open it up for any additional questions, so get them ready or drop them in the chat. Um, so you said that you're not necessarily tied down to a specific project type, but is there a project type you would like to do that you haven't done yet in the future?
We're open to any projects, actually. I told a client years ago that we do dog houses all the way up to major projects. So but now we wouldn't do the dog house.
Oh, you wouldn't do the doghouse now, you said?
It's too busy. I wish I could. I mean, I'm not opposed to doing them, but I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. That's a good question. I know my favorite project typology is ecclesiastic because of the impact that it has on people's lives. I've done so many churches. Pastor Vernon of the Word Church has really, really hired us to do significant projects for him. We really try to um, focus on how do we touch lives with what we do and make it more tangible and uplifting. I think about the cathedrals in Europe, those old stone churches that we have around Cleveland, the old stone church downtown, and other houses of worship. And we just don't build things like that anymore. And it saddens me a bit, but I've always been interested in doing architecture that was uplifting to the community. And that's where my mind is.
Okay.
It's great. I love health. And it does serve a purpose, especially now that I'm getting older. I realize how important it is. So, major typology.
Okay. And then Dylan just asked, did you have a favorite church design that you've done so far?
I would say hmm, the word church acronym. It was a Handy Andes. I don't know if anybody remember that. It was a precursor to Home Depot. So that gives you a sense of the scale of the building, 60,000 square feet. And just the program, the pastor allowed me to really develop the program. Obviously we wanted the sanctuary and different support components for that. But just in terms of child care facilities and choir area, it was such a dynamic facility. And when it opened, it was just so many people in Akron, Cleveland, just attended the service. And to me, I had a sense that people were going to be uplifted and encouraged in their own lives by experiencing this book.
Yeah, it's cool. I think I love that, you really enjoy this kind of project type because I think here in Cleveland, there's a church every corner, every other corner,
Mm-hmm.
every half block.
Mm-hmm.
But many times after one church has kind of ended its lifespan, another church will purchase it and just use it as is.
Mm-hmm.
And so they make do with the spaces, they turn it into whatever they want,
Mm-hmm.
but to be very intentional with how you design it, the materials, the colors, it can really enhance the experience. But I think also the lifespan of that church can really thrive and go a lot longer
And the
because
community.
yeah,
Impact
because
on
you're
the
actually
community.
being thoughtful behind the design. So this is great.
Right now, one of my more interesting projects is next to that are sports facilities. I'm designing a new sportsplex in Maple Heights, where the owner is a player in the NFL for the Tennessee Titans. And he grew up in Cleveland, went to Benedictine, and really was focused on uplifting the community with this structure. So we have a partial football field. You know how large football field must be. So it's maybe a
Hmm.
quarter of a football field, full court basketball, training facility in the lower level, spa, sauna, yoga, Pilates. And it's just amazing knowing how important the gym is to me to be engaged in those type of projects. You know,
Oh,
I don't
absolutely.
stand for it. Mhm.
Yeah, I think the most impactful, like you said, is someone who has born and raised here and then have gone to like a national stage in some sort, and wanting to come back and give back and make investments in local communities. I think is even better because they have a better idea of like what is here
Right.
and the community versus I'm just an investor, I'm just throwing money and this is what I want instead of being very intentional with who they're building it for and making sure that the end user can actually benefit from what they're actually building for the neighborhood. It's pretty cool.
One of my favorite projects to date is really more symbolic and meaningful for me. I grew up in the Huff neighborhood, and East High School, which is on 82nd and Superior, thereabouts, um, was a school that closed. And I basically was a student at that school, and it was dormant for years. And CMSD is one of my biggest clients, and I helped them come up with a plan and strategy to sell their headquarters on East 6th Street to where they relocated on Superior Avenue. But obviously, a lot of their departments would not be able to be accommodated in this building on Superior. So we came up with the idea of utilizing some of their existing assets. And East High was structurally sound, beautiful still. And we decided to locate departments in that building. And everyone was, I wouldn't say everyone, but quite a few department heads weren't feeling that process.
Mm.
So athletics went down, they braved it initially. Athletics, facilities, and nutrition, food and nutrition. They were the first pioneers, so to speak. So we developed the space. We designed 2 new parking lots behind the building. And once the other departments saw what we were doing there, they were clamoring to get to that building. So the building is completely occupied. That's where all the teachers go get their continuing education, and they lease space out. So for AIA, I had my annual retreat. Whenever a president comes in, we have a retreat where all the directors meet on a Saturday. So I rented space in East High School and walked through my strategy for the year of how I thought or would like to see AIA move in certain directions. And my mom, she doesn't live too far from the building, and it's such a widely used facility, especially in the wintertime. The lights are on early in the morning while it's still dark. And she said every time she comes downstairs, she can see the school at a distance lit up. And yeah, obviously I've taken her in the building. And my sister graduated from there. But just to have worked on that building after being a student running around as a young kid, to actually just be in there to make a difference and revitalize that building, that was more than emotion.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a full circle moment. But also, it's a shameless plug to show what you can do as well. I mean, as the president of AIA Cleveland, being able to bring your colleagues into a space that you designed, it was for the business of AIA, but they can also see
Right.
your capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
which is phenomenal. So Dan, before we got about 8 minutes left, so if you have any more questions, drop them in the chat. But I would love to share with everyone if they had any additional questions, they wanted to see more of your work, if you could drop your website in the chat.
Yep.
You can also drop your email in the chat.
Yep.
Do we have any more questions for Dan before we get out of here? You can either come off mute or drop it in the chat. Yes, thanks. So it's www.udltd.com and then architect, ARCATEK at udltd.com.
The number too.
The phone number too. Oh yeah. Listen, most people don't call, Dan.
Okay. Well,
They do.
I already
They
shared how old I am.
Now they do like email addresses. Do you have a social media handle?
Yeah,
Do
I
you
have that.
have a Facebook page?
I do.
I'm saying that's kind of like what they ask now, but you kind of went old school on this and who dropped in the chat the books? Oh, Jay Myers. Yes. Oh, I worked at Robert P. Madison and we had those books and we had to look up all the information in those. I've it reminded me of a encyclopedia I had at my house. So
I still have a set in the office from 2000. I just can't depart with them.
yeah, yeah. Dylan asks, is there somewhere he can find the Word Church design? You can probably go on the Word Church website and click on their link for the Akron, and you can probably see pictures and things of like the interior photos and things.
Yeah, I was able to do their South Main location, the downtown Kinsman location, Akron, and quite a few offices and pastor's home, many additions to his home. And we just
Yes.
love what we do.
Oh, and Janelle asked a question about do you have any advice for students? She's currently getting her master's degree in architecture. She currently has her own graphic design company,
Mhm.
but she does want to own her own firm. So, do you have any advice for
Well,
students?
you know my mantra, get licensed. All that hard work that you're undergoing, continue to move and get licensed as soon as possible. because we need you to be licensed.
That's really, yes, that is so on point. But also now, nowadays, they're making it a lot more accessible to get your license. Now they have the AXP program. You're able to get take courses online to be able to get hours. If you were at the NOMA conference, I went to a breakout session where they talked about um, getting hours, construction administration hours by visiting construction sites. So I'm going to talk about how Noma Cleveland can start doing that. But there's plenty of ways to be able to get those hours and start before you graduate. So I would advise to also get some internships before you graduate. It's great to try to want to pummel through, but the problem is you'll have all the degrees and zero experience, but want to make a lot of money. So
And
the more
question,
experience, the better.
and that question was from Janelle.
Janelle, yeah.
But also highly recommend that you guys get involved with AIA and NOMA because those relationships are just unparalleled. And I say that because I did not get involved till later in life. Um, so I can't even imagine where I would have been in terms of the relationships and where the firm would be, and the knowledge base that I would have. I mean, I'm partnering with other members on the board on projects.
Oh, yeah. And there should be student chapters at your college. I didn't find out until later about a AIA student chapter. We didn't have it at my undergraduate university. Um, but now that I'm at Kent State, the AIA does these student design competitions where your work can really, be put on a larger platform, which could again show firms what you can do without working for them so they can seek you out. There's scholarship money. There's not only for school, but also to take the ARE exam. Like there are so many opportunities that I wish I knew about before to walk us through. So now that you're in school, like take advantage.
Right. I mean, the
Oh,
enhancement is so much easier with those relationships and building your knowledge base and understanding about this very complex profession we're involved in. This is not only complex, but it's ever changing and evolving from processes to materiality.
absolutely. So Dylan just asked, and I'll let you take this, Dan. I have some thoughts, but he says, as a recent graduate, why is it important to become licensed?
Oh man, because I guess number one, it basically substantiates all of your effort and it gives you a level of credibility that you wouldn't have otherwise. Even if you still um, are very new in the profession. That's to me, that's a baseline accomplishment. It's something that one should strive for immediately. And the reason I stress that is because it took me, what was it, 10 years after graduating. I worked in the construction industry, basement waterproofing, doing various things. And I I hold AIA so dearly now because AIA can assist, NOMA can assist in achieving that objective and allow you to break through the silo. So not only does it confirm and give you the credibility, but it would just help you understand the broad nature of this profession, getting that behind you.
Yeah, I think for me it's oh, Jeff put in here, you'll make $8,000 to $10,000 more a year. Get to the money.
Yeah, okay.
Uh
Yeah, I missed that part, Jeff. Sorry. Thank you.
no, he just posted it, which is great. And he said you also can always work for yourself. So when you're at a firm and you're fed up, right? Or you're like, they're not paying me enough, or I
Mhm.
want to explore these kind of project types and those opportunities aren't available to you. If you have a stamp,
Mhm.
you always have the option to work on your own and, start your own practice.
Hey,
Um,
I share a personal comment really at 6 o'clock, but when I got married, I had passed 7 of the 9 exams. That's when there were nine at that time. And my wife is an attorney And, one day she was pregnant and she asked me, maybe we were married for about 6 months. And she said, hey, honey, come over here and sit down for a second. And I sat down and she had the Ohio Revised Code in her hand. And she said, you know what? I was reading, you have architect on your license plate, um, grammatically. But she said it says that you can't call yourself an architect without passing this state board, or else you'll be styling as an architect. The word was styling. And I felt so small that I passed those two parts of structures, which were very tough for me. I passed those two parts in about 2 months. But the point I'm making is after passing my state board, it was just such an incredible relief. I look at my license oftentimes. I have it on my wall in my basement where I used to work. So when I go down there in the morning, going through, my morning processes, I look at it oftentimes and say, man, I'm actually a licensed architect. People just can't wake up one day and say, I'm an architect. It's impossible. Maybe back in the day, but right now we have so many hurdles to overcome to achieve this objective. And it's such a great feeling to have that. And Don, that's why I stress that to you. Daryl, I see you on here, Michelle. I don't say that to, just give you guys a hard time. But it's, when James passed his boards last year, or was it this year?
This year.
I'm so happy for him because I can relate. And I'm going to be so happy for you guys as well.
Thank you,
Can
Dan.
I add, can I add one more thing about becoming licensed?
Sure. Yes, Crystal.
Crystal.
One thing you have to do when you're an architect, you have to put your stamp on a drawing. You cannot have a stamp unless you are a registered architect. And if you can't put a stamp on a drawing, you can't have your own business.
Right.
Yeah.
And being registered also opens up the door for a lot more projects that you can go for.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you didn't have a stamp, you're limited to housing in the state of Ohio.
Yep. Thank you for sharing that,
Thanks,
Crystal.
Crystal.
Anytime.
Yes. So, yes, it is 6:03, but I just want to thank you again, Dan Bickerstaff, for hopping on the call to share your experiences as a firm owner with a boutique business model. Once this has been recorded, and so once it is downloaded, we will post it for you guys to review. Please share and share again. Last week we did Calvin Singleton, talked about real estate and buying his own building. When I post that tomorrow, please share. We have one more, which is this Wednesday. Again, from 5 to 6 p.m., we'll be meeting with Devin Penna. She's a registered architect in North Carolina. She is a professor, a lecturer, and she recently last year launched a co-working space for Black women called Afro Space. So we'll be talking about all of her avenues of businesses and how she has been able to sustain her practice. So I hope you guys have an amazing evening, and I hope to see you on Wednesday.
Thank
Bye,
you. Thank
everybody.
you, everyone, for attending. Appreciate you guys.